Hey everybody, this is Nate. You're watching WASD20. Thanks for joining me today as I take a look at the Dungeon Master's Guide for D&D 5th edition. I just picked this up today at my local game shop. You can see the trio is complete. So I'm excited to tell you a little about it. The format of this review sort of thing is going to be basically 10 of the best things, 10 of the highlights, things that as I looked through the whole thing, I haven't read the whole thing, but looked through it, that jumped out at me as things that were really cool, particularly useful, or just really good advice for me. So as we do so, understand I will have some critical thoughts at the end too, and tell you whether I think it's worth it or who it's for. But yeah, let's jump in and take a look at the book, the insides. Alright, so here it is, the Dungeon Master's Guide. As I open it up, it's got a similar cover and insides to the other books. Tim from Tabletop Terrors did point out to me that the pages seem a little thinner, and I would agree with that. They're a little thinner than the Player's Handbook. One thing that's kind of a bummer is that some of these initial pages, you might not be able to see this very well, but they're a little bit wavy. Yeah, I'll have to put a picture in here. You can see it better. But it looks like there might have been just a little humidity damage or something happened in manufacturing. There's just a little wave to the pages, just in the beginning and end of the book mainly. And that's not just mine, that's also two other people I've talked to, one of whom is out of state. So, yeah, just something to be aware of if you're buying the book. Maybe check it out and see if you can find one that has less of that effect or maybe doesn't have it at all. Alright, so as I was flipping through here, I'm just going to be pointing out things in order as they jumped out at me. And the first reason that I think this is great, and the first highlight for the Dungeon Master's Guide, is information on considering your players and what do they want and what their needs are. So I'm going to be covering up pictures here and there. These awesome art, by the way. But if I don't cover it up, it washes out the text. So we want to be able to see the text. I hear words are important. So this page right here, knowing your players. What are your players into? Acting, exploring, and instigating, etc. And they give you tips for how to engage those types of players. In a similar way, there's a lot of information here on play style, hack and slash, immersive storytelling, or something in between. And just considering again, what do your players want, and what kind of world do you want? Likewise, this page right here on page 38 has flavors of fantasy. Do you want heroic fantasy, sword and sorcery, epic fantasy, mythic fantasy, dark fantasy, intrigue, mystery, swashbuckling, war, wuxia, I think is how that's said, etc. So all kinds of interesting kind of flavors for your game. And again, you consider your players and what kind of world you want to have. And there's good kind of foundation there for building adventures and building a world. Alright, my highlight number 2 as I was looking through, the thing that jumped out at me was the tables. There are so many great role tables for all kinds of things here. So here we're looking at dungeon goals or wilderness goals. What are the goals in going to a dungeon? What are the goals in going to the wilderness? Great tables there. All sorts of other tables here for adventure villains, adventure introduction, the climax. So yeah, really good stuff. Event-based goals. So these are some good tables. The book has lots of them. I'm just going to pick a few that I really liked. Creating Dungeons is on 101. Yeah, so dungeon creators here. What's going to be the boss? What are the cults and religious groups? NPC alignment, dungeon history. So yeah, lots of good stuff there. Skipping ahead to 112 here, you have settlements. What are the race relations, ruler status, current calamity, notable traits, known for its, and random buildings. You can kind of pick the buildings you want to have in your town and roll for those. The other one I just have to show you is here on page 294. I think it starts on 293 actually. Yeah, and this is dungeons. So what kind of dungeon do you want? Or what kind of place do you want? Do you want a death trap, a lair, a maze, a mine, a planar gate? Stronghold, temple, or shrine. So, and you can roll up for what kind of rooms you would have in here, and maybe even where you could put those rooms. So, yeah, just lots of great tables again for rolling up all kinds of random things. They even have, what kind of general furnishings are there in this dungeon? What kind of tricks and noises you can roll up for the dungeon. Just all kinds of tables. Alright, my third highlight here in the Dungeon Master's Guide is NPCs, creating non-player characters. There was a little bit in the monster manual on non-player characters, but that was mostly focused on making them for your enemies, who your characters are fighting. So in this case, we have kind of charts for rolling up how to build NPCs based on appearance, their abilities. You've got talents, mannerisms, etc. Awesome picture of a beholder right there. So yeah, all kinds of stuff that you can roll up here. Certainly you can make it your NPCs with the player's handbook or somewhat with the monster's manual, but this gives you more tools to do so, and I think it's pretty slick. Alright, my fourth highlight as I was going through the Dungeon Master's Guide was treasure. This is really cool right here. For page 137, you've got treasure hoard, and so you can make a hoard for a boss basically, and you can roll up how much gold will be in it, what types of gems, and a magic item or some other items obviously you would want to put in each one. So yeah, I thought this was really cool, super useful just for rolling up what kind of treasure will they find. The other thing along with treasure is magic items, and yeah, I think people are really going to like this. There is basically, if we go magic items A through Z, I think Z is on page, or A is on page 150, and Z is not till page 214, I believe. So that's 75 pages of magic items. And yeah, just awesome pictures along with them. Yep, that's right, all the way up to page 214. So, and then you get into sentient magic items even after that. So yeah, just tons and tons of magic items. And as a new DM, a fairly new DM, I would say this is really useful because I would have trouble coming up with magic items on my own. I just don't have enough experience. So this gives me all kinds of good ideas. And of course you can adjust them and give them your own flavor too. So yeah, just great stuff. Alright, my fifth highlight is this chapter on running the game and just some basics of running the game. They talk about table talk here. So again, this is stuff that for a new DM like me, this is really useful. Just tips for how to deal with table talk, dice rolling, rules discussions, metagame thinking. That's something that new players might not be familiar with that concept, and that's really nice to have a little write-up on what it is and maybe understanding why people frown on it. Gaming with small groups, new players, I think that's very useful. Just tips on how to bring new players into a game. The roll of dice, should you roll a lot? Should you ignore the dice in most cases? Or should you take the middle path? And so yeah, just kind of thoughtful analysis of some of those issues that gamers deal with. There are a lot of tips here on page 240 for how to award inspiration and some variant rules even for awarding inspiration. Alright, the sixth highlight I really want to talk about is combat. The player's handbook really left a lot of people wondering about how certain things would be handled in combat. And a lot of people were expecting much from the Dungeon Master's Guide, and I think it does deliver. It delivers a lot of variant rules, which we'll talk about soon, but here you got just some more detail on combat, and especially for a new DM, this is going to be very useful stuff, talking about size and how that looks on the squares and hexes. This is stuff that a lot of experienced gamers might think is no-brainers and just stuff they know, but for new players especially, they're going to need some of this information, and it's really only available in the Dungeon Master's Guide. Surprise! One thing I forgot to mention in the combat section that I totally meant to is they do have the optional rule for flanking here. And so basically if you are flanking, you can choose to, as a DM, give your players advantage on their attack rolls. There's also optional rules here on diagonal movement and on facing. So just a couple other things there that are really important in the combat section. I know a lot of people were wondering about how 5e would treat those things. Alright, now my seventh highlight is just about unique situations that you can present to your players. Things like chases. So there's quite a bit of detail here on how to run chases, and there's even these charts, urban chase complications, wilderness chase complications. So yeah, this is really cool. Then there's this information on siege equipment and how you might run a siege in your game. There's diseases and poisons. So again, just a lot of this stuff on ways to kind of spice up your game. Madness you can do with madness effects and insanity. Alright, my 8th highlight is Chapter 9, the Dungeon Master's Workshop. And here is where you're going to find a lot of the variant rules that can really change the flavor of your game and change the rules of the game. So yeah, there's all sorts of good stuff in here and just good ideas for how to make this game your own. There's the idea of proficiency dice instead of proficiency bonus, skill variants, there's hero points, honor and sanity as 2 new ability scores you could add to your game to give it a different flavor, and it might fit really well in some settings. There's even a little bit here on alien technology and firearms and how you could incorporate those in your game if you're going for a completely different setting, a non-traditional fantasy setting. Initiative variants. This table here on injuries is really cool. When your player drops to 0 hit points, you could roll for one of these more serious, lingering injuries as well. Alright, my 9th highlight is also here in Chapter 9, but it is more about the creative ability it gives DMs. The ability to create your own monsters, really cool. Now, DMs have been doing a lot of this stuff on their own. This is nothing new, but it's cool that the book has it, and it just makes things easier, and it gives DMs more tools and good ideas, I think. So creating quick monster stats, and basically there's about 5 or 6 pages on how to create your own monster. Even more, I think. Check this out. You can even create spells in 5th edition. So you could kind of make up your own spells, and it tells you how to do that as a DM. Creating magic items, this is going to be very useful. And creating new character options. You can even alter classes or create a class, create races. The example race here is the Aasimar, which is kind of cool that they included that. So yeah, all kinds of creative tools for the DM to create new things. Alright, my 10th and final highlight is the monster lists. These are really cool. This gives you monsters by environment. Arctic monsters, desert monsters, forest monsters, coastal, etc. And that is really useful. Now, there is a problem with this. The critique is that this should have been in the monster manual. And I would say I agree with that. I don't know why it wasn't included there. I think it should have been, as well as the monsters by challenge rating. I think this definitely should have been in the monster manual, but they didn't put it in there. They were holding it back for the Dungeon Master's Guide for whatever reason. I do think it makes this book very useful and more of a must-own when you consider that it has these monster lists. Alright, so I know I said there was going to be only 10 things, but consider a few of these honorable mention. I just want to give honorable mention to this chapter on a world of your own, creating a world, DM as the master of worlds. And so I think that's really cool, just stuff on how to kind of build an entire world. The other honorable mention I wanted to give was 2 things in the back of the book. One of them is the maps. It just gives you some sample maps. You could use these or you could use them as inspiration. And the last thing I want to give honorable mention to is the Appendix D here, the Dungeon Master's Inspiration List. And this just gives a list of books that you can check out that can inspire you to be a better storyteller or kind of give you ideas for how to build worlds. So yeah, looks like there's some really solid stuff on this list. So that was our look inside the Dungeon Master's Guide. Now the big question, is it worth it? Would I recommend it? First off, this book retails for about $50, and you can get it at game shops for about that. It's not available everywhere yet until December 9th. On December 9th, it'll be available on Amazon for $30, I think. And so just something to keep in mind. I actually got it, it was 30% off all role-playing game books at my local game shop on Black Friday. So I got it for about $35, which I thought was a really great deal. I wasn't expecting that. So I would have paid $50 for this. I'm really happy with it. I really like it. But I will say, I think if you have the Pathfinder Game Mastery Guide or if you have other Dungeon Master's Guides from previous editions, you might not really need this. It certainly is not a necessity. Let's keep in mind that Wizards of the Coast has the basic rules for free online, and they have some Dungeon Master rules online for free. And really, that's all you truly need. Also keep in mind that random roll tables, NPC generators, and all these sorts of things that are in here are often available for free online in all kinds of places. All this other stuff is nice to have if you want all the options, if you want all the variant rules. It's all good stuff to have. So do you need this? No. But if you're going to be running 5th edition a lot, I would recommend it. I'm really glad I got it, and I'm not even running 5th edition right now, but I do hope to start soon. And I think the Dungeon Master Guide will be a great tool to help me in doing so. So, thanks for watching. If you have the book, I'd love to hear from you and hear what you think. If you have any more questions, if you don't have it yet, I'd be happy to answer them. Just put them in the comments below. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and everybody take care.